haven't been this close without a mask for a long time.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kathleen, and Larry and I today are here with Judy and Kent Dove. Welcome, guys.
Hello.
We're so glad that you're here today. Thank you very much for joining us. And actually, the first question I want to ask you is, how did you meet?
Whose side do you want to hear first?
Well, I'm sure they're conflicting. No, I'm kidding.
Well, they are.
Well, I was doing a show. I had just discovered the Raleigh Little Theater, the show prior to this. So it was during my second show at RLT. The old Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat was back in the 80s. Wow. And I was performing, and one night I came to my dressing room, and there was a beautiful flower arrangement on my dressing room table. And we had a very fun cast. We were always playing practical jokes on each other. And I looked at the name on the card, and it said Kent Dove. I had never heard of him. Of course, this was in the days before Facebook, before cell phones, before, just the old days. And I thought it was such a beautiful name that it had to be made up. And so I thought that somebody was pranking me. And when Dee Penvin Crew told me that no, he was a real person, I kind of panicked and thought I was being stalked. And so every time he would send a note to the theater letting me know that he was going to be at such and such cast party, I would make it a point not to go to that cast party. You tell your side now.
Oh my goodness.
Well, I happened to be, I wasn't in the show, I was usher. And I happened to see her, and I was caught an interest, and besides Dee Penvin Crew, there was another girl in the cast who moved away years ago, but I recruited two of them to help me figure out a way to get introduced. And so pretty much that's what happened, and she finally did agree to meet me. So after one of the performances on a Sunday matinee, I think, we met in the Rose Garden face to face for the first time.
I thought at least I could thank him for the flowers.
That's nice.
So she came out, she hadn't even changed, she was in costume, she had her makeup.
Okay, don't tell everyone that, because I really should have. But I wanted to make sure that he knew which one I was.
Oh.
Right.
There you go. So that's kind of what happened.
That is great. That is great. Thank you for sharing that, because I love when I hear that people met at RLT. So that's
right.
Just such a wonderful story. So can you tell us how you got into theater? I know you're both educators as well, but you're both actors, and I know Judy, you're a director. I don't know about you, Kent. So tell us your journey with it.
You start.
It started when I was a junior in high school. I come from a very small town. It was very small back then, less than 10,000 people.
Hope Mills.
And every year, the junior class at school would give a play to raise money, and the senior class also did a play to raise money. And I got involved with the junior class play, and that kind of sparked the interest, and that's where it started for me. When I was I guess I was late 16, early 17 years old.
Nice.
And then from then, I didn't do anything in college, and when I moved to Raleigh some years later, I developed a friendship with a fellow who did a lot of theater, and it sparked an interest. I said, well, the next time there's an audition that you think I might be interested in trying for, to let me know. And a few days later, he said, guess what? If you're serious, I'm going, So I went with him and got a role, and that was June of '82, and so that's where it got started from a community theater standpoint.
Wow.
Did he get cast too?
Yes, he did. We both got cast. Sure did.
So you didn't take the part from him?
That's good.
No. We there was plenty to go around.
Great. All right. How about you, Judy?
I started out as a dancer. My mom was afraid that I was going to be pigeon-toed, so she enrolled me in ballet classes when I was 4 years old. And I love the, I love the spotlight. I love sequins and the feathers on the costumes. I loved moving in rhythm. And really, initially, I thought that I was going to be a dancer. And as when I got into school, excuse me, we didn't really have a drama program back then. I mean, we sort of did, but every time, you know, with budget cuts and everything, every time I advanced to the grade level that the drama class was being offered, they had moved it to the one above me. They did the same thing with French. And ironically, those are the two things that I ended up majoring in college.
That's hysterical.
Yeah. But anyways, in college, I just realized how much fun it was. It was my goal. One of my goals was to be in what I call a real play. And, you know, I found that it was a lot of fun dancing in musical theater. And so that's pretty much what I did until I went to graduate school and started trying different things.
Very cool.
So what was the first real play you were both in?
Well, okay, so the first play, and I know now that all plays are real plays.
Right.
So I'm going to tell you, the first play that I remember being in was in the 4th grade. It was some little Christmas show where I was one of the kids who was supposed to pretend I was sewing up a stocking. But even at 9 years old, I was into realism in theater. And so I had my mom teach me how to sew so that I could really sew up the hole in that stocking every night that we performed. And then, of course, I had to rip it out again for the next night. And then in school, I managed to get a little ensemble role in The Miracle Worker. And probably then the first role that I got that I could say was, you know, resume worthy was when I was in college and I was cast as Susan Mahoney in Finian's Rainbow.
Very nice. Wow.
And for me, that first play I ever did was Our Town, and that was our junior class play. That was my start, and then we did the senior class play a year later, and that was Arsenic and Old Lace, and I got the role of Mortimer in that, and then I didn't do anything again until 1982, which that was the last meeting of the Knights of the White Magnolia, which was did at the theater in the park. So from there, we just did one thing after the other, and Our Town was the beginning for me.
So did you have a mentor, either of you, when you were young or even older?
I wouldn't, no, I didn't have a mentor. There was a teacher in school, in high school, who had seen me do a skit or two at some function. And she cornered me one day and said, you know, I see a spark. And she was the theater teacher there at school. And she said, I think maybe it's something that you might want to think about pursuing and enjoying. And she encouraged me to,
Nice.
You know, to pursue, and that was nice. And then as I did things, more people encouraged me, colleagues, friends, more teachers, and it just, you know, the more you get reinforcement, the more you do. So that's kind of how I continued.
And then there was no stopping you. That was it.
I'm still holding out for the right contract.
Right.
Right. How about you, Judy?
So as far as a mentor, I would say the closest thing that I had was when I was in high school, we had an English teacher who one day I just got this idea that I was going to write a play. I didn't know how to write a play. I just wrote a play, and it was a parody on all these monsters that you might find in different settings, stories, whatever. And I just wrote this. It was actually a musical with all classical music, and I rewrote lyrics for everything. Of course, I couldn't write music, but I knew that my dad played by ear. Talk about volunteering your parents for something. So I went to school. This was around Halloween. I went to school and I told my teacher, Miss Kenny, I wrote a play. Can we do it? And I'll never forget this very momentary, just hesitation. And I know now that what was going through her mind was, I've got so many things on my plate. What in the world? But what popped out of her mouth was, yes. And you direct it, and everybody in the class has to be in it. And so we actually, with that support, we did the play. We told everyone in the school, the high school, the whole school, that if they wanted to see the play, they could pay 25 cents and get out of class.
Oh my
Of course, we sold out. The entire school came. And my dad, I don't think he'd ever really rehearsed with us, but I remember him walking through the door. He got off from the post office to come over, and I was sitting next to him and said, okay, now Dad, the song from Carmen. Now Dad, the Monster Mash. And he would play, somehow we did the play, and with the proceeds, we started the first creative writing magazine at our school.
Oh my gosh, that's
great memory.
wonderful. An entrepreneur back in high school. I love that. Oh my gosh. Wow. Wow. Have you ever gotten great advice from someone, either about acting or writing or directing or teaching, that you go, oh, every day I think about this person. Thank God I got
Ushering.
Ooh, just the encouragement.
that?
Nothing stands out as any one thing that someone, just articulate and projection. I don't have a very deep voice, so people can't coach me in that area. But as far as advice, just to continue and supported me in that way.
Cool.
Honestly, I was it's sort of the opposite. I mean, my friends encouraged me, and we all supported each other. But I was that kid I wasn't a great singer. I could dance, but I was kind of quiet and shy, and I didn't sing. So I was not going to be somebody's, blockbuster star in anything. So I really didn't get paid that much attention to. I behaved myself. I didn't cause any problems. I showed up on time. I was fine, But I think that just the fun that I had with my friends, when I think about theater, I think of all the friends that I've made. So probably my friends are the ones that encouraged me.
Definitely.
I was listening to you guys both say when Kent said he got, praise for his work, that he had a spark. And we've interviewed a lot of people, and a lot of kids have heard that as well. A lot of people heard discouraging words. And I thought about when someone said that to me in 7th grade. I mean, it's so important, even if it wasn't true for me in 7th grade, just to hear that and validate that it was okay to keep pursuing this,
Right. Oh, yeah.
Do you guys have a favorite theater or film actor?
I like Tom Hanks. I mean, I really admire Tom Hanks, Meryl Streep. I mean, they're classics, but I admire their work and their work ethic. I seem to have lots of favorite actors, and whenever anybody asks me that question, I can't remember them. I had the biggest crush on Robert Redford. I had such a crush on Robert Redford when I was in school that when it came time to order our class rings, I got his birthstone in my class ring.
Wow.
Oh, I can't tell that. Understand that I went to movies back in the 1950s. So for me to come down with a name, growing up, people like John Wayne, Gregory Peck, those were guys that if they were in a movie, I would generally want to go see it. But as you get older and tastes change, I think Tom Hanks does a great job. I like Nicolas Cage movies. And I loved Robin Williams.
Oh, yeah.
He just, everything he did that I saw, I just thought was terrific, and what a waste to lose him so early, so soon.
Yes.
You know who I really like? John Cryer.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
hear that a lot.
We'll finish the interview and you'll remember about 5 more.
Yeah,
Right.
and we'll look them up on the TV.
There you go. Do you have a worst audition story that you would like to share with us?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the worst that I can remember. It happened relatively recent, 5, 6 years ago. I made callbacks and I went back and was waiting for my turn, and the director comes into the room and tells those of us that are there, he told us about the scene that we were going to read for. And he said, "This is what I'm looking for." And he told us how he wanted us to portray this character. So when it's my turn, I go in and I do my thing. And then on the way out, I'm coming home and I realized, shoot, I did the exact opposite. What he told us he wanted us to do, I did the opposite. For some reason, it just went in one ear and out the other. And so, of course, I not only did not get that part, I didn't get cast at all, but lesson learned.
Absolutely. Oh, well, you know what nerves do to us too. You know, you just,
Sure.
Why, you know, it's so we tell students it's so important to practice because you're going to go into autopilot. You
Yeah.
know?
yes.
I think for me, my worst audition, I always tried my best. You know, I was never going to be the one to get the big role. I mean, and that's fine, you know, but I think for me, and this is really timely because of some of the things going on. I remember going to auditions and being told that I looked too Asian or that I didn't look Asian enough.
Okay.
One time when I was in college, I went around auditioning for theme parks because I wanted to be a dancer in the theme parks, you know. And one lady actually took me aside and told me that I was a good dancer and I sang well, but I just didn't look all American.
Wow.
And that is why they weren't going to cast me. And of course, back then it was in the 70s, you know, early to mid 70s. And, you know, I just thought, okay, but, you know, for me, it wasn't something, I mean, I was upset about it, but it wasn't something that stopped me. It just sort of made me think, okay, so I've got to go another route, you know,
Right.
and just
Right.
keep trying to find something that I was suited for.
Right.
But that just broke me, tickled me to death when I remember standing in line to audition as an extra for, was it the Year of the Dragon? It was something like that.
Oh,
And
Mike, what you
I was
mean
standing
Year of the
in line
Dragon
with
in
all, huh?
Yeah, Mike, what you mean it was directing Year of the Dragon in
Yes.
Wilmington. I was the extra in that.
Oh, you got, okay. So I'm standing in line with all these Asian people. They're staring at me. I felt like I was twice as tall as any of them. And they're all looking up at me. And finally, one of them smiled and I smiled back. And I thought, oh, how nice. They're friendly. And she then said, "You don't look very Asian."
Wow.
I just can't win. I just can't win.
No. Although I think that, I mean, it still happens today. You know, I have a young friend who went to audition for something off Broadway, and she's very ethnic looking, you know, and they wanted like the blonde, blue-eyed, you know, that's what they had in mind. And they told her, nope, you're not the right look, you know, and I guess it's the only, theater and film, you can say that, I guess, okay, but.
Yeah, and certainly as a director, I understand, you know, that point. I mean, I always sort of took it with a grain of salt. Okay, I guess we did have Asians living in Mingo Junction, but in the Deer Hunter, you're not going to see them walking down the street, you know. And I could totally see their point of view.
Mhm.
It just disappointed me, you know, that.
Yes.
Here we go. But things, you know, I mean, there's lots of other stuff to do. So.
Yeah.
Can you guys list your favorite show you've been in?
That's my favorite was Greater Tuna, which is a theater. That's a work that you may or may not have ever heard of.
Yes.
It's actually there's a trilogy, and we did 2 of the 3 in Raleigh, and that was just a hoot. I love comedy. I'm much more comfortable in comedy. And Greater Tuna was a serious challenge. It was fun. It was very well written. But it was, of course, just 2 actors portraying 22 characters. So we're on and off stage constantly you're changing costumes, and Judy was one of the 2 dressers that we had, and they worked harder than we did, keeping track of 22 costumes, 22 wigs, whatever we were wearing. And that was probably, when I think back over the years, that was my favorite show
Well, what a great challenge. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, it was. I'm not sure I could do it today. It's physically and mentally. I mean, it's 11 different voices, 11. You're playing old women, you're playing old men, you're playing children. A partner even had to play the part of a dog. It was.
Oh,
wild.
that's great.
Who was the other
Whatever,
actor?
That's one I thoroughly enjoyed.
Wow. That's great. What about you, Judy?
Which question are we on?
Which is your favorite show you've done?
Honestly, I think any show that I have been in has been my favorite show. The favorite shows of the shows that I've been in, the ones that I've liked the most are the ones where I've been in the ensemble. And I'm going to admit, I have not had very many principal roles. I think Susan Mahoney was maybe the only one. But I absolutely love being in the ensemble of a musical, because that's where you got to, I really, you had a character that wasn't predetermined necessarily. And you got to hang around with everybody, and you made so many friends. And that's what I love to do.
Absolutely.
Is there a role that either of you still want to play or hope to play?
I've always wanted to play Medea. Like inner Medea.
Oh, so all I need. No, for me, there really isn't.
Okay. So when you were acting, what, in your opinion, is the best type of actor to be on the stage with?
Well, you go ahead.
Okay, I think somebody who is prepared and who has an instinct for what to do, and who enjoys it and has fun, and who is, I guess, somewhat flexible. I mean, the perfect actor. That's what I like.
Exactly. And you would probably say the same thing if I asked you from the point of view of a director. Same thing.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that, that most of what I've done lately has been directing, not so much acting, but yeah, exactly. How about you, Ken?
Yeah, someone that I can depend on and who can depend on me, and someone who knows what's going on stage. I've been on stage with one other actor, and my mind just went blank right in the middle of the scene. And luckily, he was smart enough. He knew my lines well enough that he threw me and he just made up a line, put a word into it that I would recognize, and we kept right on going. And luckily, I had him on stage with me because he was just that intuitive and that smart, and I could depend on him to pick things up when, because that scared me to death.
Yeah.
That was 3 seconds of that makes you feel like you're just in an eternity of void and vacuum. And he recognized that I was in trouble and immediately took charge. And that's the kind of person that I'd like to be as well. But certainly when I'm in that situation, I'd love to have somebody like that to be there.
That's great. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We all have great moments on the stage. Can you guys tell us a couple of great moments you guys have had?
Well, I don't know that. I'm so sorry. I don't know that this was a great moment, but this was a moment that meant a lot to me. I was doing a show at, was it the Governor's Inn Dinner Theater or something back then?
Yeah.
And it came to it was a show. I came to the show one night. We were all getting ready, and as soon as I walked in, somebody said, you know, you're going on for so and so, and I said, oh yeah, right, because, you know, I love ensemble parts. I love small parts. I'm not a big part person, and this was a big part. But you know, you have to kind of see where your characters are and who's available and what scene and who you can double as, you know, for whatever. And then I suddenly realized from the looks on their faces that they were not kidding. And I immediately sat down and started. Of course, we had no email, no cell phones. You know, you waited until you got to the theater to be told this because there wasn't any other way. If you know, depending on when you were told. And the thing that I remember most is, first of all, how different, even though it was the same stage and the same show that I had been in night after night, it looked so different coming on as a different character. And the thing that I remember the most is how everyone supported me, you know, just in character, helping me to, you know, remember things or be where I was supposed to be. And it was one of, I don't know if it was one of the best experiences I ever had, but one of the most meaningful.
Oh, that's, wow. Wow.
For me, the thing that comes to mind is when a piece of theater business works and you get the reaction from the audience that you are hoping that piece of business brings.
Yes.
I was doing a show years ago at Theater in the Park, and it was a drama piece. And there was this one particular scene that left the audience. It was just a very heavy moment. And we hadn't opened yet, but the director, he said, you know, we need something here to break the tension. And it was a scene where my character I was a bellboy, and I was going to enter the hotel room and deliver these four ladies a bottle of wine that someone had sent to their room. And he said, here's what I want you to do. And he told one lady to throw a bucket of ice. There was a big fight, and he told her to throw a bucket of ice over the other girl, one of the other girls. But to be sure, to make certain that a lot of that ice fell right in front of the door. Because he said, now, Kent, when you come in, I don't want you to look down on the floor. I want you just to walk in and step on the ice and just play it. And we hadn't tried it. This was like the night before opening. And he said, we hope that'll break the tension and we'll get a nice laugh and go on. And sure enough, the next night it happened and the girl did perfectly. She put a dump of ice on the floor, and I walk in and just step on the ice and I react to it, and the audience, they needed something to break the tension of that moment. And it got exactly in fact, that night I went across the street to a restaurant after the show, and a table full of ladies started applauding for me, which that doesn't happen. So that was for me a moment that I really enjoyed.
I'm sure that director was smiling from ear to ear when that happened too.
I would hope so, because it really did work well, and he had a great idea, and when it works and it works that well, you really it just made the moment for me, and so that was the magic moment that I can recall.
Do you have a story about something funny that went wrong on the stage?
I do.
Okay.
Okay, so I was in Trumpet in the Land, which is an outdoor drama, decades ago. And the director at the time had thought that it would add to the realism if he got crates full of chickens. The opening scene of Trumpet in the Land shows all of the pioneers, you know, coming in with horse-drawn wagons and piled high with all their belongings. So he thought it would be great if he got a bunch of chickens and put them in these wooden cages because he thought they would be squawking and add to the realism of the scene. The chickens were terrified. They just flattened themselves to the bottom of the cage and didn't make a sound. But what did happen is, of course, outdoor drama. You're surrounded by nature. And the skunks realized that we had chickens in the area. So one night we were on stage, and I remember all of a sudden everybody just froze. I didn't know why, but because everybody else froze, I froze too. And I had the guy that I usually played opposite, he said, "Don't move." And the audience, I mean, it sounded like a baseball stadium with a home run, you know, I mean, they were roaring. And then at some point, everyone broke and we just went on with the scene. I discovered later that a huge skunk had just sauntered on stage, apparently looking for chickens or eggs or whatever. And we didn't want to disturb it, so we just all froze, let it go where it wanted to go. And it was there for a little while. And when it finally had decided that there was nothing on stage for it, it went off. And all the kids in the ensemble went tearing off after it. So nobody got sprayed though.
Thank goodness. Oh my God.
For me, going back to Greater Tuna, one of the characters I played had a mustache. And of course, it was an artificial mustache. And we had to stick it on my upper lip whenever I had to go on stage as this character. And early in the show, I think the first scene maybe, I'm on stage with my partner, and he and I are going through our lines, and I suddenly felt that mustache dropping off my lip. And of course, the audience is there, and we're in the middle of the show, and I'd never had a malfunction like this. And I tried to use my bottom lip to get it to go back up, and it just kept falling and I felt it slide, and there was nothing I could do. And I did a little bit of, trying to coax it back in place. Of course, by now the audience, they know what's going on. I mean, it's just, they know I'm having trouble with this thing. And my partner, who's just the two of us on stage, he sees what's happening, of course, and he's laughing. He can't go on, so he just sits there and lets me deal with this thing all by myself. And I just finally say, "Oh, the heck with it." I just took it off and stuck it in my t-shirt, my shirt pocket, and the crowd laughed. It was just a fun moment, and I didn't wear the mustache the rest of that night.
Wow. Wow.
We were sweating so much, you know.
Right.
Yeah, it was just the spotlights, and it was just not working. So that character went hairless for the rest of the show.
I wonder if the reverse would happen. Like if, Larry, if you were on the stage and things weren't going well and you weren't getting the laughs, if you just pulled a mustache out of your pocket and put it on, like would that cause people to?
Well, I did a show on an
Whatever it
eye
takes.
patch, and I think I switched the eye patch in between scenes, which I was covering, but I don't think the audience really got that and stuff. Now, I know, Judy, you do more than act, but if you guys could not act or do whatever you do in the profession now, what else would you want to do in theater?
In theater,
Yes.
I would want to be, I think I would, if I could go back to college and do it over again, I think I would want to be a managing director.
Wow.
Yeah, I've seen what they have to put up with, and that just, and I've done it. I mean, to some degree. When I taught at Martin Middle School, I had my school theater company, and it doesn't matter if it's middle school, high school, community, whatever. You still have to go through, just the very similar steps. Deciding your season and doing contracts and working budgets and making sure you've got everything within budget. And I really enjoyed that. And I love advertising. I love giving shout outs and calling attention to good things. So I think that's probably something that I would like to do if I could.
Well, maybe when we all get to that retirement home, you can start a company there and be the managing director. That would be.
And we can do bingo.
And we can do bingo. That's right.
And gin game, that's still on my list.
And gin game, right? Yes. What about you, Kent?
You know, I have done a little stage managing. I know my limits, and I'm happy with my limits. I'm just not very good at those other things. I wish I had the intuition to be a good director. I could be a bad director very easily.
I was thinking about the time that you stage managed Cinderella.
Yes.
He dressed up as Santa Claus, and he was calling the cues as Santa.
Oh.
Ho, ho, ho. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Anyhow,
Wow.
I admit I am not mechanically inclined, so doing things like hanging of lights and building of sets is just, you know, I can swing a hammer. If you tell me where I'm supposed to nail this thing, I can do okay. But yeah, I'm really happy memorizing the lines and spewing them out. That's what I can do. I'm just not very good at the other stuff, and I would like to be a good writer of plays, but you know, it's just something I've never done. But I thought it might be interesting if you know, to be a good writer. But other than that, I'm perfectly satisfied with the acting part, and let the experts who know what they're doing take care of what goes on behind the scenes.
Yes.
If you guys could go back in time and talk to the younger version of yourself when you first started performing, what advice would you tell yourself?
The first thing I would tell myself is I would remind myself of the adage, there are no small parts, just small actors.
Right.
That is so profoundly true. I've had large roles, I've had small roles, and if the role was not important, the writer would not have put that character in the script. And that you should remember that no matter what role you're given, there's a purpose for that role. As far as advice, it would be listen to your director, follow the direction. It's sometimes as hard as the actor to know where the journey is supposed to be going and ending up. The director knows that, and just trust the director and follow their instructions the best you can.
Nice.
For me, I think probably the same advice that I gave myself all along. Again, I came from a very small town, Mingo Junction, Ohio, back in the 70s, you know, and we used to go and watch the trains go down the track, you know, it's you know, the boats, the coal barges go down the river. I mean, that was an event. And I just kept telling myself, you know, keep looking for opportunities, keep trying, and keep trying to do your best. And that stood me well. It's something I, you know, tell my students, and you know, it's something that's in your heart. Just keep going for it.
Yes.
And you know, we've been in this pandemic for, I guess, over 5 months. So what's the first thing you guys both want to do when we get out of this moment now?
I want to have our kids over with their significant others and have an event.
Oh, that's nice.
Cook a meal, do anything, just do it together, and enjoy their company.
Same here. As if it's something, you know, what would be the first thing I want to do with theater? I tell you, it's funny, of all the things that I miss working box office at North Raleigh Arts and Creative Theater. You know, you get to sit there and you know, do what box office people do, but see everybody coming in and you get to talk to them, and it's just such a fun fellowship. So
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that we had that opportunity to be in a show together, even though we were never in the same room. So.
That was amazing. It even looked like we were talking to each other.
I know.
I was telling Kathleen, you guys timed it out right, because I could not see any cut that Rod did to time out you guys speaking back and forth. It's like you just paced it just perfectly, both of you.
I noticed that too. Yeah.
Yeah, it was very, very fun, and I was so amazed that it could happen, and it could be as like well received and put together so brilliantly.
Right.
It looked great. I guess one of my first things, I want to give Patsy a hug and tell her thank you for
Right.
you know.
It would have been nice to be able to present her with a dozen roses, wouldn't it? You know,
Oh,
That's
yes,
a good job.
absolutely.
and Nancy.
Yes, they were really great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This has been great. It's always fun for Larry and I to find out things about our theater friends, and you know how they got to be where they are today. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Thanks
you
for
for
having
having
us
us.
on.
Oh, this has been great.
And hopefully we'll see each other in real life sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, take care. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.